Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, episode 231, Trailer Talk. In space, no one can hear you scream. I'm Ariel Rada.
And I'm Andy Bowman.
And today we are going to discuss the latest trailers that have dropped here this December, early December 2019, but we are also going to talk what makes good trailers, what makes bad trailers. We're going to talk about bad movies with good trailers and good movies with bad trailers. So, lots to talk about today, but before that, we do have some news. And Andy, why don't you tell us what that news is?
All right, I'm just reading your copy. The Matrix adds Jonathan Groff.
Yeah, so Jonathan Groff, who most people would know from Mindhunter. He is a bit of a Broadway star. He was in Hamilton. He was in... What else was he in?
Oh,
He was in
Glee.
Frozen.
He's Glee dude. Okay.
It was in Glee. Was he the teacher in Glee? No, that's not him. Doesn't matter. He was in Frozen. He was in Glee. He played Jesse St. James. Only 15 episodes. But most recently he's in Mindhunter as the lead Holden Ford. I think he's going to be an agent. What do you think?
I want that, and I want to see a song and dance routine with the agents.
That'd be incredible, right? Somebody Neo codes something ridiculous, and it's a song and dance routine that he makes the agent go through.
Right. Did you ever watch the movie Gamer with Gerard Butler?
I did, yes.
Yeah, that's whenever I think of a song and dance routine, I just think of that.
But yeah, that's really all the news we have. Everything else is trailers, and we're going to get into those later in the episode. Just a quick flyby of those new trailers. But what we really want to talk about is the art of trailers and film marketing. Andy, here is the question we are posing. What makes a good trailer?
So one of the first things I think that makes a good trailer is a good trailer properly conveys the tone of the film.
That's a great point. I think that's really important. And I think if there are enough good trailers out there, you can use that to subvert expectations for a film. For example, I think Cabin in the Woods had a fairly standard horror slasher trailer back in 2011, right?
Yes, and I think that kind of worked to its detriment. It's one of those things where you can't really say what it's going to be without spoiling a big surprise.
See, I think it works to the detriment in terms of, let's say, making the film money.
Yes, marketing, yeah.
Right, for marketing, but I think for example, if I were Drew Goddard and I was a director, I would not have it any other way. I would sacrifice some money, to increase the value of the experience of the audience.
Right. If you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, first of all, I don't know why you're listening to our podcast, but
yeah, you get off it and go watch Cabin in the Woods.
But or the next time you do watch Cabin in the Woods, watch this trailer first and try to let yourself get put in the headspace of that movie first, right? Of the trailer, like
right.
Let your expectations be based on that trailer, and I think it really pays off.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So that being said, I think the tone of a trailer and the tone of a movie is really important. In a weird way, I think this is where something like The Last Jedi really failed. All of the trailers for The Last Jedi led us to believe it was this really, dramatic, intense, traditional Empire Strikes Back Star Wars-esque experience. And no matter what you think of that film,
And how amazing it is.
no. No matter what you think of that film, do not follow up with the statement, Andy. It spent the whole time trying to subvert certain expectations and did not match the tone of the trailer, of the marketing. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. The only trailers I've seen, because with Star Wars, I do tend to go on a bit of a media blackout. I usually watch the first trailer and then stop, but I was expecting basically Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and I think if you watch the trailers for The Force Awakens, there was no discrepancies in how the trailer's presented and how the film is presented. But the moment you watch Empire and like The Last Jedi and like what's his name? Hux is like being ridiculed. Or Luke is being like this really silly guy who we have no experience of him being. Actually, that's not true. But like, dismissing Rey out of hand. It's just such a stark contrast to the tone of not just the trailers, right? But of the film before it, and I think that is the bigger discrepancy, of course. But I think that I don't know if that was purposefully done like it was in Cabin in the Woods.
Right. Well, one thing I can think that might be the cause of this is you're dealing with one Disney versus, I think, Fox Searchlight.
For Cabin in the Woods, yeah.
I'm thinking Disney might have a little bit more control over the trailers, and Drew Goddard has a little bit more control over his trailers when he makes a Fox Searchlight film.
Yeah, and I think that is better. I will almost always lean towards the filmmaker allowing to cut their own trailer. I feel like when they don't, when they bring in a third party to do it, it tends to reveal too much of the film.
Oh, absolutely, way too much, and we'll get to third parties and how they screw around with the trailers.
Oh, we'll get there. What do we think is other aspects of what makes a good trailer? And I think, here, let's harp off this, right? A good trailer tells you what the movie's about without giving away major plot points.
Right. I would say that a rule of thumb for our trailer making audience, because I know about a third of our audience is actually trailer editors.
Sure.
And I, as a guy with no experience making trailers, I'm just going to tell you, don't put in anything from the third act. Don't put a single thing from the third act.
Right. A single shred, a single frame, nothing. Should be nothing. So that is really frustrating. I think the biggest sin, right, that I've seen, the film that committed this sin in the most egregious way possible was the Batman v Superman, where you can literally watch that trailer and piece together every major plot point of that film. Because they even show us Doomsday. If you remember in the Batman v Superman trailers. It was wildly, like, I watched it and I was like, if I didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't have watched the movie. There was no point.
Right. And like Doomsday came in at the last trailer, and I remember there being buzz, but that was still in like December. Like that was like 3 or 4 months before the movie came out.
Yeah, like, I don't mind that being leaked and people talking about it all the time. That's good movie buzz. Straight up showing him and it looking terrible, that's bad movie buzz.
Well, you remember all the memes we got from that with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, I think it's important that, first of all, nothing gets shown at all from the third act, because Star Trek Into Darkness, I worked at Sears when the film came out, so I had to watch the trailer over and over and over again because I was sitting in the appliance department right across from the electronics department, and the trailer kept playing every 40 minutes. And there is a scene in the trailer where Spock is fighting Benedict Cumberbatch's character hand to hand. Well, when the big thing happens in the movie, I haven't seen that scene yet, so I knew that there were no stakes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's frustrating. That's a huge egregious sin that a trailer commits. I think thinking back to watching trailers back in like 2013, I think Pacific Rim did a really good job of this, if I'm remembering correctly. All I knew about the movie, right? It was actually really poorly marketed. It wasn't marketed well at all, and it should have actually made more money than it did. And if that same exact movie came out today, I think it would make way more money. All I knew about the movie is that there are giant robots and monsters that you barely see in the trailers, and then you watch the movie, and it's not like Godzilla where you barely see a monster up until like the last act. It's like, dude, they're littered throughout the movie, and it's so incredibly action packed and way more energetic than you think it's gonna be. But I don't know. There's a lot of movies out there where you watch, you're just like, oh, I think, and I'm not, I can't be sure, can't be certain. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in 2 weeks. I think The Rise of Skywalker is going to suffer from this a little bit as well.
I don't know. I have been avoiding all trailers for Skywalker, so.
Oh, I haven't. I've read the leaks. But let's move on. Let's ignore that.
Another thing that good trailers do is, I think that beyond just plot points, they don't ruin or give away unexpected moments. And in a comedy, this is like one of the hardest things, right? Like, trailers for comedies will always include a bunch of jokes. Don't have those be the best jokes in the movie.
Yes. And the film for me that committed this sin most egregiously was very recently. Let's say the most recent film, let's put it that way, is Godzilla King of the Monsters. I don't think there was a single action set piece, for the exception of like Godzilla being all red and barely doing anything when he's like atomic fire Godzilla. I don't think there was like a notable cool action movie scene that I didn't just see in the trailer.
Right. Another thing, like, your reaction when you see a trailer should be, no, I need to see the rest of this. Like, I need to see the rest of the scene, or I need to find out what that looks like.
Yeah.
Ghidorah should not have been in any of the trailers. His shadow, sure. A silhouette, a mention of Ghidorah.
Yeah, and the trailer ended up having like a full lengthy sequence of Rodan, like flying out a volcano and taking out jets and stuff. And I was like, why did I watch this on my cell phone? I should have if every single experience I had seeing a monster do something cool was seen for the first time in the theater, I walk out of that movie thinking it's a C+ instead of like a D+.
And I think a great moment of a trailer that did do this is the Winter Soldier. When the Winter Soldier catches the shield.
Uh-huh.
Right? And the trailer just ends there, right? It cuts off. You want to see the rest of that. You want to see Steve's reaction.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the, as a big comic book fan, I'm curious as to like the average fangoer's experience was seeing that as Bucky. Like, I don't know. But there are so many cool scenes involving the Winter Soldier later in that movie. And so you are satisfied with his involvement and performance and character inclusion by the end of the film.
Basically, good trailers don't lie to you. Or if they do lie to you, they lie to you with a purpose.
Like, just like we discussed, Cabin in the Woods, right? Maybe not a great trailer, but purposefully so.
Right. And not Kangaroo Jack, which we'll talk about. Ariel, are you aware of what this, what Kangaroo Jack is and what its trailer did?
So I've seen the movie and I actually kind of enjoy it. Like this is a bad movie, but I had a lot of fun. I have no idea what the trailer was like.
The trailer was very heavy on Kangaroo Jack.
On like that character?
Right, on the rapping hip hop Kangaroo Jack, which is not in the movie.
It's in one 2-minute dream sequence.
Right. So the trailer is almost all that.
Oh no.
Like it's almost all that edited in such a way that you think that this is the entire movie. That this anthropomorphic kangaroo is the main focus of the movie.
That's terrible. Oh no. That's terrible. That's really, really bad. Yeah, so that's a really good couple of rules that we've given. Maybe I'll write an article on this. It seems interesting enough. So let's go over again. What are the rules? The first one you gave us is that the trailer has to match the tone of the film.
Yeah.
Okay, what were the other ones we had, Andy?
Okay. The trailer should not show anything from the third act.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let me write these down so that if I want to write on this later, I will. What's the next one?
Just not giving away any big moments of the movie. Right? Whether that be a joke, whether that be any... Don't give away that, but still balance that with leaving people wanting more.
Yeah, and then finally, it's don't lie to your audience.
Right.
Okay.
Another one I would put is music selection and conveying the emotion. While that does fit in with the tone of the film, sometimes it's useful for music selection to be counter to what the tone is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking the famous Gears of War trailer with Mad World playing while all this fighting is happening, right? Sometimes there are those creations where the tone of the music kind of amplifies the tone of the movie.
Yes, I get that. Yeah. Okay, so we have a couple of good rules here, and so, we're only about 15 minutes in. We're going to discuss some of our favorite, least favorite, best trailers, worst trailers, and kind of look at them through the lens of the rules that we've given here.
Right. Oh, Ariel?
Go on.
Here's another one. Under 60 seconds.
Quick trailers, yeah. I hate when trailers are like 2.5 minutes. Who cares?
And the thing is, the longer you run, the more risk you have of disobeying all the other rules.
Yeah, I think it'd be smart if you have like a quick 1-minute trailer and, right, you replay scenes from that trailer through marketing and also have like images and stills and posters and stuff. And we'll talk about marketing a little later for a couple of films and how they didn't quite do that, or maybe an overexposure. Go on.
Did you see the thing about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 where somebody took all the marketing material and was able to edit together 20 minutes of the movie? Like 20 completely separate minutes of the movie.
That's crazy. The entirety of your marketing should not make up more than 5 minutes of the movie.
That would be fantastic.
Right. It's crazy. But let's take a look at some examples of trailers. And if you are listening and you have more examples of trailers, you are, of course, welcome to tweet at us at Geek 101 Podcast on Twitter. But Andy, what is the first trailer you want to talk about, whether it be good or bad or somewhere in between?
Okay, first good trailer. First truly good trailer. Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I watched the trailer for this. I saw who directed it, and I was completely sold on what the movie was going to be.
Right. But not only that, Scott Pilgrim, especially at this time, was so far from the mainstream.
I think even still.
Yeah, but at least nerd culture has grown enough.
Sure.
Right? But the idea here, Scott Pilgrim is just so far from the mainstream. You have a trailer that introduces the tone of the movie, what it's about, and just the kind of things you can expect. I do remember there are two movies that I saw trailers to in the theater. where my dad saw the trailer and just kind of like leans into me and says, "That looks weird." And not in like a good way. One was Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
The other was Sucker Punch.
Oh, yeah. People thought Sucker Punch was going to be awesome, if I recall.
Yeah. That was it was an interesting time in the theaters. But anyway, I just think Scott Pilgrim, the story I think is concise enough, but Scott Pilgrim is much more about the tone and what the movie does, the kind of humor, the quick cuts of the entire film, and all that is represented in the trailer.
Sure, yeah. One of the best trailers and marketing schemes I've ever seen in my life, which ended up turning out to be one of the greatest disappointments I've ever experienced, is Man of Steel.
Oh.
Man of Steel used the visage of Superman. They used the knowledge of Superman, the emotions we associate with Superman, the music we associate with Superman, themes of hope, of light, of goodness. And they made this awesome trailer about, you'll believe a man can fly is the original marketing pitch of that film. And it worked so well, and Christopher Reeves was so great. And you have this like awesome young actor, handsome man in Henry Cavill. And the movie we get instead is so tonally different from that one hope-filled trailer, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And inversely, you have the General Zod marketing. I don't know if you remember this, Andy, where he like shows up on your screen. It looks like he's like a like an emergency broadcast test, right? But he's like, we are looking for this Kryptonian. Turn him over to us, or you'll face the consequences. And there's something really cool about like an invading force demanding to take away your hero, the man who gives you hope. But instead, we get a Superman whose dad tells him to maybe let children in a bus die. It was a dark and gloomy experience, completely devoid of hope and goodness and light. And so it kind of broke all the rules. It was like the tone of the film was completely different. I think we're pretty sure we got some scenes from the third act. It showed us one of the best parts of the movie when he like comes out of the ship and learns how to fly. And they lied to your audience through emotional manipulation of previous existing properties. It was just a terrible deception of the audience with Man of Steel.
Okay. Now, do you want me to tell you one of my favorite marketing things that has happened? It was in my lifetime, but of course I was not old enough or in the area to understand what
Sure.
was happening. Are you aware of how the Blair Witch was marketed?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm pretty aware of that.
Well, for listeners, essentially, the Blair Witch, you can look up clips of it to figure out what it was, but it was returned to Blockbuster. Like, people would rent movies and return the Blair Witch to Blockbuster, but they would return it without any credits. So essentially, whoever put these in would think that they are actually watching a real movie, like, or a real like home video.
Movie.
Yeah. To me, that is so brilliant.
Yeah, so the Blair Witch was the original found footage film about a group of people in the woods looking to debunk the myth of the Blair Witch who lived in the woods. And the rumors got out and the marketing got out and the marketing encouraged that this was almost like a snuff film, like a real film where people like died and they got a hold of the tapes and stuff. Of course, we now know that it was not, and it was, And since then, found footage has kind of been done to death. But in that moment, back in like 1998 or whatever, this ended up being a brilliant, brilliant marketing ploy.
Right. Another found footage with an interesting marketing ploy, Cannibal Holocaust. You know,
that's like the old one, right? Is that what you're
right,
talking
right.
about?
Yeah, it's super old. But the Italian director told all the actors to basically to take a vacation for a year. Get out of the country.
Yeah.
Don't be around here so people don't know that you're alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's brilliant.
Yeah, but it ended up with him being questioned by the police, so that was pretty funny.
I think another really good trailer, bad movie was Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah.
And eventually we learned that what's his name who made the movie? Oh gosh.
David Ayer.
David Ayer, right. David Ayer, well-regarded filmmaker, made Suicide Squad. They cut the trailer, and the trailer ends up being basically a grungy rated R Guardians of the Galaxy. And the reception for the trailer was so good that they decided to recut the movie to better match the trailer. And the end result, of course, is a disaster.
It's so stupid.
It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. And this is why you have to feel really bad for David Ayer. You have no idea what this movie is actually like. And the movie's absurd. It's nonsense. And I don't think it would have been good with David Ayer's interpretation of it. I think it would have been better. Right? I think it would have been more cohesive at the very least. Similar to something like Fantastic, where this might have been a C- instead of an F. And Suicide Squad could have been, I think, a C-, right? Instead of just a blatant F.
Right. And Ariel. So that's one thing, but let's remember that the reaction to that trailer was so powerful that they went out and got the actual director of Guardians of the Galaxy to make the sequel.
Yeah, it's completely nonsense. It shows that Warner Brothers has no idea how to actually like run a studio or run big properties. It's really, really frustrating for people or fans who really love the DC properties. Like, my 5 favorite comic books that I've read, 4 of them are probably DC books, right? It's not true of characters, perhaps, but still, it's really, really annoying.
Well, I'm gonna make a hot take. In most of the quote unquote like literature that comes in like superhero lore, that comes from DC. Like, that's Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come, The Long Halloween, The Killing Joke, All-Star Superman, right? Yeah. Like, these are all DC.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm always like wary about poking fun at DC because they have some of the best storytelling, but only in the short bursts, really, not in the long term. If that makes sense. God. Anyway, let's continue to another wonderful trailer. Some might consider this to be the classic great trailer. Alien. From 40 years ago.
Right. You hear the tagline that we mentioned in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. This is almost what a trailer should be. I encourage you listeners, if you have not seen this, go online, pull it up, take a look. All it is a camera panning over a xenomorph egg, and then a almost seizure-inducing, so maybe if you have epilepsy, don't go watch this, flashes of the movie completely out of context with the slogan, "In space, no one can hear you scream."
Yeah, it is one of the best marketing. I think back in the 70s and 80s had like awesome marketing. I think you look at Superman, you look at Alien, and you look at Jaws, right? Maybe Jaws 2, right? They'll make you afraid to go in the water or something like that. But I think In Space No One Can Hear You Scream and You'll Believe a Man Can Fly are probably the two best taglines I've ever heard of for films.
Yeah. And it's short, it's punchy, it conveys the horror of Alien, right? Like, people aren't going to see this trailer and think, oh, this is a great one to take kids to.
Yeah, for sure. I have another really good trailer and for a really good movie. I think you have to look at Inception back in 2010.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the only knock on Inception is that they don't give you a sense at all of anything the movie's about. And to me, I think you have to knock it for it a little bit. If there was any mention of going into people's minds, right, I think that's vague, but it also tells you everything you need to know with the context of the imagery, to make people want to watch it more. I think more people would have been on board with Inception if they had any idea of what it was like going in opening weekend.
Yeah, I think this is a case where Christopher Nolan had just a little bit too much control.
Yeah, he's a little too... He tried being... And this is his thing, right? He tried being a little too clever.
Right. Like, I still don't know what the plot of his next movie that comes out this summer, Tenet, is. Like, they're keeping that down.
Yeah, and to me, I'm just... If you don't tell me what your movie's about... So to me, plot is really, really important. And if your plot doesn't make sense, I'm not... Like, I just don't... I don't care for you. Clearly, people who listen to the show know. If the movie doesn't make sense, I don't care for it.
Yeah. All right. You want to go on to the next trailer, Ariel?
Sure. I think you have to look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy as one of the best trailers. Looking back at that trailer, I watched it recently. I think the trailer is better than the movie. Like, the trailer compared to other trailers is better than the movie compared to, certain things.
Yeah, I think Guardians has probably aged the most poorly in the MCU. Like, out of all the films, Guardians has really aged.
I think Doctor Strange has aged the absolute worst. What do you think about that? I mean, I have no... Like, I'll rewatch Guardians. There are a couple of cool scenes, kind of funny. I have no interest whatsoever in ever going back to Doctor Strange.
Well, when I say aged, I mean it's very much a product of its time.
Okay, I mean, but it still does a lot of throwback stuff.
Right.
The music, stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess it's just the movie that, like, initial reaction and current reaction are the biggest discrepancy.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that for sure. I think Mad Max Fury Road, you watch that trailer, you know something special is going to happen. And since it's a sequel, like, you don't have to tell them anything about it at all. Everyone knows what it's about. Who cares?
Yeah. Speaking of everyone knows what it's about, the next trailer on this list is Avengers Endgame.
I think I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they show you just enough imagery.
Right. There's no action in this trailer.
Yeah.
It just shows you characters, and they already know that you're going to go see this movie. Really, this was just confirming the name of the movie. Like, that's really what this trailer did. Yeah,
and it's just them saying, like, we've lost things, people have died, people are going to die, whatever it takes.
Yep. And perfect.
And it's so funny because the action and not the plot, right? The action and the fan service is so amazingly good that it doesn't matter that the plot doesn't make sense.
Right. And plus, this movie a worse studio would have shown Thanos getting killed in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, to try to get people in. DC would have done it, undoubtedly.
Yeah, and instead this movie's like, you know, you already know. We're not going to say anything, but this movie's coming, and you're going to watch it.
Right. Let's take a look at a couple of bad trailers for perhaps better movies.
Okay.
I think you mentioned the Kangaroo Jack one. That one's pretty egregious there. I think one I recently dug up was Dread.
Oh.
The movie talks about, I mean, the trailer is all about like the drug epidemic and the larger city and how are we going to like resolve the situation. And then you watch the movie and it's Dread and his partner just, kicking ass and taking names for an hour and a half. And you're like, how are these the same? I don't understand. How are they the same thing? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Totally, it's way off.
Yeah, the trailer really made me think that for Lena Headley's character was going to be way more integral as a character and not just as the villain at the top of the tower.
Right. Yeah.
Another trailer that is for a very good movie, but the trailer fucking just lies to you. Bridge to Terabithia.
So I think, this was tough. Tell us what the trailer was like.
Okay, the trailer is basically Narnia. It is kids going into the woods and finding a kingdom of elves and monsters and exploring and like getting prepped for an epic adventure.
Yeah, and famously, the book has a really tragic ending. And the book is not nearly like the movie or what the movie pretends it is like.
Right. Well, the movie is that, though. Like, that's the thing. The movie matches the book beautifully.
Yes.
The trailer does not.
For sure. I think that was a big problem, and people brought their kids to it, thinking it was going to be something else. I forget what other ones I had. For some reason, I decided not to write them down like an idiot. I think, but like I said, Pacific Rim is one of those movies where you're like, yeah, this seems like it could be a pretty fun movie. I'll watch something with giant robots, and you come out of it and you're just like, oh my god, like that was insane. Of course, I wasn't keeping up with like directors at this time. It was 6 years ago, so like I did not connect the dots that the guy who made Pan's Labyrinth also made Pacific Rim, and I probably would have had the foresight to see that had I decided to do that,
Yeah. Another trailer that really lies to you. Liam Neeson's The Grey.
So I haven't seen it because somebody had told me about it. So tell us what the trailer is like.
Okay, the trailer shows a man plane crashing in the Alaskan wilderness, and there are these wolves hunting the survivors. And this man is a survival expert who will guide his fellow survivors out of the wolves' territory.
And what is the movie like?
Oh, and the trailer also implies it's heavily action-oriented.
There you go.
And the movie is a slow contemplation on what death is, what loss is, and to make everything the worst. And I mean, in a beautiful way, but also terrible. The trailer ends on the last few frames of the movie. Right? Which is a massive cliffhanger. Like, it's a huge cliffhanger. And the movie ends on that cliffhanger, and the trailer has the same ending.
Yeah. I think one of the worst and most egregious trailer sins we've ever seen is back in 2000 with Castaway.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
In the trailer for Castaway, in the original trailer, you see Tom Hanks make it home. So at the whole time you're watching the film, you know he survives.
Okay.
It just doesn't have the same impact.
Now, a movie came out recently called A Dog's Journey Home.
Oh, no.
And the movie is about a dog getting lost and having his journey home. Well, if you've been to the theaters lately, you will have seen the trailer, and you will know that the dog makes it back home. It is the entire movie. It is all the plot beats of the movie. And you know what? I actually think that was probably a good marketing for them, because the kind of people who want to go see a movie want to make sure the dog's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like they want to go into a movie knowing it's going to be happy. Well, here you go.
Yeah. Going back, I think I'm looking at a list here from Looper.com. They mentioned Spectre from 2015 as like a great trailer. That was an amazing trailer.
Yeah.
Spectre. But then the movie ended up being just okay at best. I think we have to mention for bad trailer, right, for committing one of these sins, is Terminator 2.
Ooh.
When we mentioned that in our Terminator 2 episode. Why? Why tell the audience that the T-800, Arnold's character, is now a good guy? Frustrating.
Yeah. Another great twist that was ruined, GoldenEye.
What is
the reveal that 006, played by Sean Bean, was the villain?
Oh, right.
That was in the trailer. Yeah. Man, Hollywood just does not get the idea of suspense.
The people who are at the top, the producers, these people, they are not normal human beings who live in normal society. They don't understand what it's like to be a regular person. They are rich beyond belief and live in a world through which they can pay through any sort of consequence, and everyone tells them yes, and everyone tells them everything's a good idea. And as a result, we get bad movies from it.
Right. Another trailer that I think is interesting, Ender's Game. Ariel, did you watch Ender's Game or read Ender's Game?
I've read it. I did not watch it.
Okay. So it's a trailer that ruins the ending for the movie, or that ruins the ending of the story, except you only know that it ruins it if you've read the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have overheard with my friends many conversations. Oh God, I can't believe that trailer ruined the movie. What do you mean? It ruined that spoiler. And I haven't read the book, so I didn't know that was part of the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's frustrating to be a fan, but also that almost seems intentional. Haha, we're gonna show the fan, the readers of the book, what happens, but the people who haven't read the book don't know that it's all a game.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. What are some examples of the worst trailers we've ever seen?
Cats.
The Cats trailer is just absolutely unreal in how terrible it is.
Yeah. A trailer that is airing right now in theaters. So if anyone goes to see a movie in the next few months, you're going to see it. Like a Boss.
I have no idea what this is.
It's the Tiffany Haddish Rose Byrne comedy.
No, oh yes. Oh, that looks terrible. That looks awful.
I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog's trailer was so bad that the movie was delayed and they worked on it.
Brilliant. But yeah, those are two. I think if your CGI is not up to snuff, the film's not finished, don't don't release a trailer. Don't put that stuff in the trailer. The cats and the Sonic, they look so unbelievably terrible. The Cats trailer is one of the worst, most haunting things I've ever seen in my life. It's absolute ridiculous how terrible that trailer looks. And it's, you know what's funny is that people are going to watch it because it looks so terrible.
Well, Ariel, current box office trending for the opening weekend of Cats is actually at 13 million, which is not good for this time of year when it's coming out.
Right. Yeah.
So
anything else about these trailers?
Don't put Nickelback in your trailers.
What example are you talking about?
As I was doing research on trailers, apparently there's a Batman Begins spot with Nickelback.
Oh. All right. Let's move on to a couple of trailers that have dropped over the last few weeks. The first one is not The New Guy, Free Guy is the name of the film, with Ryan Reynolds playing an NPC who kind of realizes that he can change the game that he's in. Thoughts on the trailer?
First of all, the trailer opens up beautifully. It opens up with a line like, from the studio that brought you Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Aladdin, The Lion King. Twice, yeah. Yep. It's a great little thing showing a guy going about his normal life, and you're slowly introduced to, okay, things are weird. Somebody is dabbing in the background. Okay, the bank this guy works at is getting robbed. He seems really okay with it. And it slowly introduces the elements of what makes this story unique in our world. It makes it a little easy for people who don't really understand what video games are.
Right.
And it's funny. I think it goes on way too long.
Yeah, agreed.
But I mean, this is the first half of this trailer is a solid trailer. It delivers the tone of the movie. It plays up that it's Ryan Reynolds, so you know it's going to be funny. It shows not the big reveal, but the conceit of the movie.
Yeah, so here is my quick one sentence take on Free Guy. The movie looks like it was made by people who understand how video games are currently played, which is way more than I can say for Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One.
I was about to say that, yeah. This is the version of Ready Player One that looks fun.
Right. That if you took this exact tone and conceit in how the world is working, right? How people, do things, how people equip weapons, anything. Way better than Ready Player One. Next trailer, Wonder Woman 1984. Andy, what are your thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984?
Okay. I thought that this trailer was separate enough and vague enough that it hits some spots. I hope, as much as I loved the scene of Wonder Woman grapple hooking on lightning, I hope that's not like the big climax of the movie. We get to see some interesting armor. We get the confirmation that Chris Pine is back.
Right.
Which I really don't know how I feel about that. That seems like it could be a spoiler, but if it happens early enough.
And then it looks like it does.
Right. We get hints at who the villain's going to be.
Right.
I don't think we get anything crazy as far as action goes, but I think we get a good feeling of Wonder Woman living in this era, and we get a bit of a feeling of that actually makes it feel like it's in the 80s.
Yeah. I have no interest in it being in the 80s. I think it's a little gimmicky, and I'm not all that into it. It looks like it's going to be fine. I think it'll be somewhere in terms of critical reception, and I think critical reception, it'll be pretty high. In terms of my reception to it, I think it'll be somewhere in between the first Wonder Woman and Shazam. Like, I think that's its ceiling. I can't imagine this is better than... I would like it more than Shazam, which I thought was pretty good, right? Like, I think some of the action will be pretty good. I think... And I'm pretty sure, much like the first Wonder Woman, I'm just going to look at this plot and be like, oh, like, it just it's not great. But I think it'll be entertaining, which is way more than I can say about anything pre-Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I think with the success of Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman was the first truly successful DC movie, both critically and at the box office.
Sure.
Patty Jenkins got a lot more control over this.
Yeah, and that is a bit encouraging. I really enjoyed the first 2 acts of Wonder Woman, and then the third act, which is a CGI mess, and then ends in her gaining the power to defeat Ares because she's in love with Chris Pine.
Makes sense.
Hey,
another great story where the man saves the day.
Right.
Ariel, what's the problem with that?
And so if we can avoid that, right? If Patty Jenkins is in charge and she avoids a plot line, and I don't know if this is going to happen, she avoids a plot line where the female, or the woman rather, in the story is empowered by her love for a man instead of, let's say, her love for humanity and her compassion for the little person, like Wonder Woman is all about, maybe I will enjoy this more. But if you're a fan of comic books, you can't come up and be like, yeah, Wonder Woman was a great interpretation. No, it was a wrong interpretation because she's so in love with Chris Pine that she gets power from it.
Right. After, 3 days of knowing him.
Yeah. That was as bad as Superman's dad telling him he should probably let kids die in the bus.
Well, Ariel, it's not like Wonder Woman movie was written by a single white man.
Okay,
right?
let's move on. Ghostbusters Afterlife. What are your thoughts on this Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer?
Okay, so a friend of the show, Hassan, gave it a 2 out of 10. But I feel very positively about this. This feels...
Hassan, what's wrong with it, bro? I don't understand.
I really liked it. Its tone was a little bit scattershot. I couldn't tell really what the movie's going for. If it's going more horror, more family friendly, or more just comedy. But I thought it was a great way of acknowledging previously the movies that have happened, introducing the world as it is today because of the Ghostbusters. I do feel like it was a little heavy-handed being like, this is the sequel to the real one. Like, when they show the clip of the Ghostbusters in New York. Like, it's like, no, this is not another attempt, guys. This has women in it, but it... God, it was... Ghostbusters was fine. The answer to the call, it was fine.
Yeah, I did not watch the Ghostbusters with
Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy and what's her name from Wonder Woman 1984. But
Patty Jenkins?
I had no Kristen Wiig. I had no interest in it, and I'd be really interested to see what fan reaction would be if this was the trailer and like Finn Wolfhard wasn't in it.
Ooh.
And every single young Ghostbuster coming up was a girl. That is a woman-led Ghostbusters movie I would watch. Now, I didn't watch the last one because it looked terrible, not because, of course, there were women in it, even though I hate women, right?
Well,
Andy?
you're known for hating women.
Right, especially Asian women from The Last Jedi. No, that's not true. Please don't say that. That's a bit.
Right. Rose Tico is Ariel's favorite character.
Stop. Kelly Marie Tran, wonderful person, right personality. I'd love for her to get more things. Rose Tico, terribly written. Sorry. Yeah, like I said, I would really, I'm interested in this movie. To me, it felt, when I first watched it, it felt a little bit like Scary Stories. That we just watched this year.
Right.
And I think that's a smart way to do it, right? Where in a really strange roundabout way. It reminds me of Logan, where it's like, hey, here's this character, or here's this thing we recognize, and the world is not what we thought it was. The world has fundamentally changed. When Paul Rudd's character goes, we haven't had a ghost in 30 years, right? The Ghostbusters did something, and now maybe we're accidentally undoing it. And I think the tone of the movie is going to change a little bit as it goes from the first half to the second half, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah. And that, you know, the little thing of like, who are you? And then showing Harold Ramis's patch.
Right, the Spangler. She looks like him, by the way.
Yeah.
Intentionally, of course. Next up, the Disney live action adaptation I am perhaps most interested in, and that is Mulan. What are your thoughts?
Okay. There is a reveal in this movie, or in this trailer, that there's going to be maybe some shape shifting, which has me a little cautious there.
Right, and then we are introduced to the witch character, yeah?
Right. So yeah, I'm a little cautious about that because Eddie Murphy's not coming back as Mushu.
Yes, that's the concern, really.
It feels epic though.
It does. It definitely it is. Instead of it does not feel like a Disney live action remake. It feels like an old school Chinese epic.
Right. And that makes me so much more interested than I was in Aladdin, which I saw Aladdin and it was fine.
I did not see Aladdin. There is an issue, of course, with Mulan because the lead actress is a bit of a Chinese nationalist. Right, and has spoken out against the Hong Kong protests, which, you know, speaking out against people looking for democracy and to get out from a communist regime is not great. But Mulan does look way more interesting than any other previous Disney remake.
Yeah. It looks like it's actually different. It looks more in the lines of the Jungle Book, so I'm really cool with that. The trailer also gave a nod to the famous song, so maybe we'll get that. That'd be great. I would love to Make a Man Out of You again.
Yeah. People are complaining. By people, I mean man babies are complaining about the introduction of the witch character, which is accompanying Chinese warlords is like super duper common in old Chinese epics and kung fu movies. So get over yourselves, right, guys.
I will say the shape-shifting thing, God, I'm going to sound like an idiot when this movie comes out and this prediction is completely wrong. But when we watched it, I leaned over to my wife and I said, is Mulan going to shapeshift into a phoenix at some point?
I hope
fight
not.
The hawk? And my wife says, where the hell did you get that idea? So
I didn't get that at all.
Right. So like I just have this fear in the back of my head that that's what it's going to turn into.
Okay. In the history of the show, you've been way off with these predictions.
Oh, I'm usually off, but I'm willing to voice them.
Yeah. Okay. No, sure. I get that. Yeah. For sure. I get that.
Yeah. I'm usually wrong, and that's part of the fun of it. Is I don't think about the chances that it'll happen. I just say it.
Yeah. See, I've had a nice long stretch of me being right, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. See, exactly. Maybe you need to change your predictions, Ariel.
See, but as someone who's attempting to write fiction, I've been studying fiction a lot. And the more fiction you consume and analyze, the more you realize that plot-wise, right, there's not a ton of directions things can go. And it takes somebody telling a story really, really well for me to either not care or not see whatever it is coming. You look at some guy like Nolan. You look at what the Russo brothers did with Endgame, where I was like, man, this doesn't make any sense. I really don't care whatsoever because the fan service and the action is so good.
And that actually probably it really helps to highlight a big difference between us, where because you are a writer, the things that are basic in screenwriting bother you way more.
Right. The things that people get, the easy things people get wrong
right.
to me, are unforgivable. Right, the Mandalorian that we just saw, that episode, where even the most rudimentary of viewers is just like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And somebody along the process should have figured that out.
Right. And for me, because I spend all day reading scholarly articles, and I mean like the boring kind of scholarly articles that I'm doing for my PhD program, just turning I can't keep firing those neurons while I'm sitting down and watching something.
I can't watch storytelling with my neurons off.
Right, exactly. So I just think that highlights a
Sure, yeah, a difference in how we view things. Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you view things, viewer or listener? Tweet us, right. Geek 101 Podcast.
But that's why I watch things like Great British Bake Off when I need to unwind.
Right.
Because there is no analyzation. It's just, hey, watch these people who are nice and they're friendly with each other. Watch them bake things.
And that's why I'm loving Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh God, Andy, you hurt me so much by the fact that you watch it. A couple of last things here. Avenue 5, which is an HBO comedy set in a sci-fi world starring Hugh Laurie. What are your thoughts on this trailer?
Okay, this trailer I think does a really good job of setting the tone of a very specific kind of comedy. We're introduced to a captain of a vessel, and it's by the same creator who did The Death of Stalin and Veep. It's a satirical take on certain things, and we're introduced to an Elon Musk character who is very clearly in the wrong as things are going terribly on this spaceship, right? God,
yeah, and it's definitely a comedy. Yeah, it's I have no interest in it, so I can't really call on it, talk about it too much. But it does feature Hugh Laurie and does have good writers, so hopefully we do get a good product there.
Right. And I think it's airing on the same day as our next trailer.
Yeah, our next trailer, our last trailer, is called The Outsider, which is a Stephen King book. I think he co-wrote it with his son Owen King, a.k.a. Joe Hill. So if you see a book by Joe Hill, you know that it is Stephen King's son. It basically follows a story about a crime investigator and a murder that's happening. It stars Ben Mendelsohn, Jason Bateman. Who else here? I'm trying to find keeps giving me to the book. I'm trying to find the Wikipedia page for the series here. Television adaptation. It's a mini series. Oh, very good. Cynthia Erivo from The Color Purple and that recent Harriet Tubman movie are all have roles in it. It has an almost True Detective feel. It's like True Detective, but a Stephen King book.
Right. It's like if True Detective season 1 lived up to the Lovecraftian horror elements.
Yeah, and that ended up being something entirely different, which I still enjoyed thoroughly in the end. But yeah. So what are your thoughts on The Outsider? I'm sorry.
I mean, I just thought it was a really effective trailer at being like, oh, normal mystery, and maybe there's something a little weird here.
Right, which is how most of Stephen King things end up being. And I think clearly the key to his success is his ability to portray things in a very normal way while having a very supernatural, abnormal twist to them. All right, that is all the trailers we have, Andy. We aren't quite sure what we're doing next week, but we'll talk about that off air another day. Before we get out of here, what is your homework?
Okay, my homework, people, believe it or not, the animated Harley Quinn show is really, really funny and not at all what I expected it to be. Yeah,
can you give just a quick tonally, what do you think it matches up with?
Oh man, I'm trying tonally. It's really hard to describe because I was afraid that it was going to pander to the the part of Deadpool that's lol random tacos kind of humor. And instead, it's very aware, one, that Harley Quinn is in an abusive relationship with the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes that very clear. But it's almost like Harley Quinn is this character that she is in the 1960s Batman world, would be one of the best ways to put it. Or another way, it's a DC version of the Venture Brothers. Batman is very earnest in the way that, you know, the Brave and the Bold Batman is, and he's voiced by the same voice actor who did Batman the Brave and the Bold. Joker, you know, will jump off a ship into a submarine with his face on it and drive away. Commissioner Gordon is somebody who's been traumatized, as the Joker puts it, because I paralyzed his wife. Like, it is still very bloody. It is still a hard R. It is not it is not just an attempt to cash in on Suicide Squad's popularity.
All right. Sounds interesting there. My homework is a book written by Joe Hill, aka Joe King. So I made a mistake there. Owen King is Stephen King's son and helped write a different book. Joe King, aka Joe Hill, is Stephen King's other son, who is a more accomplished writer. I'm currently reading a book, one of his books from 2010, and a film came out in 2014 called Horns. And the concept of horns is a young man wakes up one day with horns on his head, like devil horns, and suddenly, his name is Ignatius Parrish. The character Ignatius Parrish, what happens is people cannot help but tell him the deep and negative thoughts that they are thinking, and he can use, you know, his horns to influence them to act on those deep negative impulses. And it also revolves around a murder that had happened to a loved one of his. So it's him dealing with the horns and him dealing with his past and the murder of one of his loved ones. It's a pretty good book. It's really negative and everyone in it is terrible, but it's really clever. It's a really clever conceit. And there's a little bit of his dad in it where he tries to kind of relate everything to like a normal, you know, try to be really, really relatable in a lot of ways with these characters and set them up and go deep into their like normal lives while also putting them in this ridiculous scenario.
Right. I've always been interested in the movie, and Joe Hill usually has really interesting scenarios right?
Yeah. So for example, one of his books is called Nosferatu, which is not a vampire movie. It's about like a car. With a license plate Nosferatu. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see for Joe King, excuse me. It's almost like trying to watch LeBron James' son play basketball, where no matter how good he is, we cannot remove him from the visage we have of his father.
Yeah, well,
especially, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, that's why his name is Joe Hill.
Right, that's why he like tried to break out, and I think he is. I think I have read plenty of books by authors not up to Joe King's caliber. Plenty of published books. Now, that's not saying much because I've read plenty of published books that are not as good as I can write them, and that just speaks to publication and not my skill as a writer. But I definitely think he is a professional and decent to good horror fiction writer.
Right. And we'll discuss it a little bit more in about 2 months when Lock and Key comes out on Netflix.
Yeah, so Joe Hill / Joe King wrote a comic book series called Lock and Key, a mini-series based off of a haunted house that is coming to Netflix. I imagine a horror-toned adaptation, I think similar in tone to the Umbrella Academy, but a little darker. So let's say somewhere in between the Umbrella Academy tone and Haunting of Hill House is what I'm imagining this series would be like.
Yeah. All right, should we wrap it up, Ariel?
Yeah, sure. Andy, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter at Hebrews Pale Ale, and you can find me at Letterboxd, the same moniker.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at DreadPirateRod. You can find us on Twitter at Geek101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook. Email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed.